You are live.
Well, this was the year for learning and for loving. This was the year to risk and take a chance. Oh, this was the year for waking up and working. This was the year to dream and dare and dance. This was the year to clap your hands, stomp your feet, beat on a drum, dance in the street, sing out a song, don't be afraid. This was the year when new promises are made. This was the year for losing and for finding. This was the year to risk and take a chance. Well, now this was the year for waking up and working. This was the year to dream and dare and dance. This was the year to raise every voice, raise every hand, raise every hope, speak truth in the land. Don't be discouraged, run from despair. This was the year to dare to be dreamers when dreamers are rare. This was the year for learning and for loving. This was the year to risk and take a chance. This was the year for waking up and working. This was the year to dream and dare and dance. This was the year to sing with the hungry, dance with the cold, make friends with the lonely, laugh with the old, welcome the stranger, cherish the friend. This was the year to pray without ceasing for peace without end. Whoa, this was the year for learning and for loving. This was the year to risk and take a chance. Hallelujah, this was the year for working and for waking up. This was the year to dream and dare and dance. Oh yeah, 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 this was the year. and dance. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's our 1 year anniversary of doing these concerts. The first concert that we did was on March 18 of last year. I had come home from a trip, the last concert of which was on March the 13th. The concerts on the 14th and 15th were canceled. I came home on Monday the 16th and we said, you know what? We got to do something Facebook Live. And at the time, we just had an iPhone. We didn't have the lighting. We didn't have, all the stuff that we have now. And we just went on Facebook Live, and that's how it all began. And today I have we have with us a wonderful sort of collection of people who have been part of our audience throughout the years. I'll introduce them in just a second. Wonderful, wonderful friends who have been week after week after week, who've been consistently watching and listening. And so all of you out there I wish we could put everybody in the audience, but we can only have a certain number. I am thrilled that you have stayed with us the whole year. When we see the names of people we have come to know and love, it's always a treat. So a shout out to Marianne and William, a shout out to Jerry and Mary Joy, a shout out to, shout out to Matt Greer, shout out to so many people, Glenn and Nancy, so many people who have been a part of this sort of strange and wondrous thing. This is a bit of a party. We're going to have some conversation with folks who are in our audience. A little music improvised on the spot, and that's sort of what you're in for. So if you want to grab some refreshments, I'm drinking coffee here. If you want to grab something, feel free to do so, but come on back. And if you want to put stuff in the chat when we start the conversations, if you want to put stuff in the chat, please feel free to do so, because after the show, we always read the messages that come from friends. That's one of the joys of what we get to do. We get to read the messages and the comments, and it's wonderful to hear what folks are saying. We've got quite a number of wonderful guests, but first, before we do that, I want to play one song that kind of summarizes how I feel about this gathering. So I'm going to play Coffee Time. And Sonia, we bought a new piano bench, and guess what? It still squeaks. Well, come on. Coffee time again, while the world is rushing to its judgment day, judgment day. Leave it all behind you, 'cause the craziness can blind you. And besides all that, I sure do need a friend. Well, I know you say you're busy, but the pace can make you dizzy. And your heart attack is just around the bend, round the bend. Leave it all behind you, 'cause the craziness can blind you. And besides all that, I sure do need a friend. And there'll be time enough to fight the windmills and all the battles that never seem to end. So from now till quarter after, it's a cup of love and laughter. So come on, old friend, it's coffee time again. never seem to end. So from now till quarter after, or from now till 20 after, or from now till 30 after, 40 after, 50 after, or from now till ever after, it's a cup of love and laughter. So come on, old friend, it's coffee time again. Okay, so let me tell you who's here. First of all, my spouse Jane is here. Jane, who is an idea contributor, sometimes camera setter-upper. This is Jane's birthday today, so the flowers on the piano are for two reasons. One, to decorate the show, but also as a happy birthday for Jane. Jane is coming of age finally. And it's wonderful.
79.
We've been married almost 56 years, and so it's a wonderful thing. Sonia is our videographer. She's also my daughter-in-law and the mother of my wonderful grandchildren, Henry and Charlotte. Sonia, week after week after week today, she drove through the pouring rain and through accidents on the highway. She kept on texting me, "I think I'm going to make it. I think I'm going to make it." And she finally got here. Sonia, good to see you. And Beverly Vandermolen, who is the producer and director of this whole show for weeks and weeks and weeks upon end. And later on, her husband Dave will be showing up. Beverly has been working with me for, I don't know what, Beverly, 94 or 5 years now, I think.
Some days it feels like that.
And later on, you will see Beverly's daughter, Janelle, who is actually produces all of our video ads and has produced the retrospective video for today. Emily Jane Style is kind of our unofficial MC. Emily is a poet friend who's been on the show before, a poet, teacher, scholar, thinker, very influential in educational circles. She's been a good friend for years. In fact, Emily Jane was the person who introduced Beverly and I to each other, Beverly and me, I guess it is, to each other back in the 1970s, ages and ages ago. And she is the person who's always making sometimes sage, sometimes not so sage comments about what's going on in the show. Emily Jane, welcome. And we have also from Japan, Larry Stallink, who is doing mission work in Japan, has a decidedly sort of Michigan Dutch accent. I don't know how that works out, but
He says no.
I'm from New Jersey, brother.
Well, you don't sound like it. You sound like a good Midwesterner. You must have had Midwest roots in your family. But Larry has been with us week after week after week after week, and usually makes wonderful comments in the chat. Good to be with you all the way from is it Tokyo?
Yes, that's right.
You're in Tokyo. Wow. Well, we'll talk. We also have from Colorado, Jerry and Corey Vreeman. Jerry is the leader of a ministry that deals with pastors, works with training pastors in India and Africa. The ministry is called Lion, and he is the teacher and leader of that wonderful, wonderful work. Corey is a piano teacher and church musician. Jerry and Corey have been friends ever since. Oh my goodness, Jerry was an intern in my dad and mom's church ages and ages and ages ago. And we've done TV work together and we've made albums together. So their whole family has been a friend. And one of the fun things I remember, Jerry, about you and Corey is that sometimes we'll be sitting together at a table at a restaurant and the whole place is quiet. Okay, and you're there with your whole family, all 6 kids, and all of a sudden our whole table breaks out in uproarious laughter. And the whole restaurant looks at us like, "What's wrong with you people? What is wrong?" So it is great to have you both here. And then we have Kathy and Dave Chambly. Kathy is an instructor, a music theory instructor at the University of Pennsylvania, a good friend, and a person who is now doing all of my music transcribing for our new website, which is coming up, transcribing all my choral stuff. We're writing some things together, and she's also doing some other transcribing for another music publisher. Her husband, Dave, is one of these people who sits at a computer screen all day long and does magic, the likes of which most of us cannot even begin to understand. David and Kathy, welcome. It's good to see you all.
Good to see you.
So I want to, now it's going to be challenging to do some conversation on this medium, but so it may be that we'll have to play school. And if you've got something you're burning to say, pop a hand up so we can catch that. The first thing I want us to talk about is what are the moments that you remember during this year? For example, I remember the last show I did. It was on the 13th of March. And we were on a tour with an actor friend. We were driving in a motorhome, and we were supposed to do 2 more shows on Saturday and Sunday. And those shows were canceled. So we drove to the airport. I came home on Monday the 16th, and we said, what are we going to do now? We're locked down. Who knows how long we'll be closed down. And so that's how these concerts started. I remember a moment that happened just last night. My church, a small church of 37 members, decided to finish the funding on a program in Oakland that is putting together tiny houses for homeless teenagers, and we're going to help build the kitchen in the middle of the plot so that all the kids will have some stuff to eat. I'm so pleased and thrilled. A lot of other moments, but I'm curious for others in the group, what are some of the moments that you remember during this past year? Anybody just pop in?
Style wants to speak.
Go for it.
I want to say something about texture of this past year. I mean, there's some moments too, but I want to start with this. There are so many threads of wonder spun across this year of these weekly conversation of rich connection unimagined before. Who knew what all the needle of tech could stitch across the miles of friendship patches, becoming quilt, a covering shelter, healing and artistry superb. So I want to bow to the divine forces present in the stitching, inner and outer, and to your poetry too, Ken Medema.
Oh my.
You're here.
Well said. Anybody else got some words about the moments or textures or whatever of the year?
Larry is ready to go.
I have an unforgettable moment during the last year, just a couple of weeks after you started your concerts. It was Palm Sunday and April 5th, 2020. Our elders had voted the previous week to go virtual and not to do physical gathering anymore. And I was up for the lead the service that Sunday morning, so I was the guinea pig. Well, we taped the worship service and we got through it, and we end with the Lord's Prayer that we say together, and we tell people, slow down, there are children praying with us. And I was leading this, and we had only a handful of people that were present at the building at the time. And I got to the Lord's Prayer, and I was about halfway through it, and I went brain dead. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm very fluent in Japanese. That's not the problem. But I think I was a little bit overwhelmed with the emotions of the moment, and we got to lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, and the words were not there.
What did you do?
I ad-libbed through the end of it. I knew what it was supposed to sound like. And I thought about my beloved friend Ken Medema, how he ad-libs and improvises. So anyway, we got through it. And of course, it was our first taped worship service. It's still on the church's website. You can see it on YouTube. And I'm so embarrassed. But on the other hand, say, all right. this is a situation that we're in. So yeah, that was my unforgettable moment.
We actually got a recording from a friend of a guy singing Lord's Prayer at a wedding, and he actually did the same thing. And it was like, lead us not into temptation, holy and glory, glory. God, Prince of Peace. It just went on and on and on. Oh, who else has got some remarks about the year?
Well, go ahead. Go ahead, Jerry.
No, you go ahead. Ladies.
Well, I have my I Heart Music Theory button that I wear all around. What I do, one of my jobs is that I tutor music theory students at the University of Pennsylvania. And so when everything shut down, everybody, of course, dispersed to the far corners of the world and were phoning in to have these tutoring sessions with me. We were doing Zoom to do our music theory lessons. And for some students, imagine yourself a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania, and you are now having to negotiate your classes from home. And in this one student's case, with a lot of other challenges, happening at the same time, this one student just happens to be very memorable for me. She was in a multi-generational household. She was the only English speaker in her household. So she also became the de facto teacher, elementary school teacher for her younger cousins who were living there as well. So she's not only carrying her pen classes, she's carrying this instructional load as well. And she happened to be in New York City, very near where those hospitals that had the refrigerator trucks outside were stationed. So when we had our tutoring sessions, we could hear the ambulances going by the windows outside her apartment. So we made a point of checking on each other. How is she doing? It was not the music theory that was really essential in that moment. It was, how are you doing, Ashley? How are you doing? I discovered she liked animals. So we made a point of sharing YouTube videos of animals. Didn't matter what, just animals doing fun things and checking. The point became to check. Before music theory, it was, how are you doing in the middle of these circumstances? And I just think she taught me a lot. She shared with me her final composition for the class, which was Soulful Thoughts. And I consider that a great gift, that she would feel that free to share that outcome of that experience, that journey through that semester for her in her freshman year.
And how many of us don't wish that we would have had a college teacher like that? Who the first thing you hear when you go into class is, how are you? Oh, man. And I had music theory at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I had sightseeing at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Today we're going to talk about diminished seventh chord. All right, more. I want to hear more.
I'm following on Kathy's words. As an instructor from home, where my students come to me, I became very aware of the difficulties of these educators all across our country, learning all these new ways of having to teach and the challenges in being home, and their children are home and yet they're the educators. And I began a prayer day for each of the people we knew in being educators, but for teachers across the country, because they needed encouragement and help and insight and joy in such a very difficult time of learning.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Oh man.
I don't want to change the tenor of our memories, but a year ago yesterday, Corey and I would have left for Corey's first trip with me to Africa. And as you can imagine, it was a great disappointment, not only for us, but for those who we were going to be ministering with. It was a major conference from 5 different countries. And yet I was grateful that we were in this together, because 7 years before that, on Corey's first trip with me to India, we landed halfway to India in Germany and were met as we came off the plane with a telephone call that while we were in the air, Corey's father had died, and so she had to return from Germany. We were leading 17 people And so for the next 17 days, we were separated because she went home to bury her father, and I went to bring 17 people to their first ministry experience in India. So it's that mixed memory of how do we respond to the circumstances. The beautiful thing for us is that we have been together this whole year and not separated by the circumstances, but we could experience the circumstance together. So it's been a mixed blessing, a wonderful year.
Oh, wow. Ah, good. That's wonderful stuff.
Does Jane have something?
I'm thinking, yeah, it's hard to decide which. I think the most important and vivid thing of the year for me was sitting at home and having to be still and safe during the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. And knowing that the world must change. It always has, that's always been true in every moment. But it has made me think again this year how much I am shaped by that longing for change in a lot of ways. And those demonstrations people looked so young, and they could be on the street for hours. And I long to have still the ability to do that.
Wow. Beverly, you got a moment?
Do I have a moment?
These moments to remember.
Moments to remember. I guess for me, probably one of the biggest was that my grandson and granddaughter, in the midst of all of this, and this is the first thing that came to my mind, came to visit us far away and asked me to officiate at their wedding.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so in the midst of the pandemic, there's still hope for, new life and new love. And I've only done that once before, and that was for Jane.
Yep.
So I think,
Jane.
yeah.
Well, any more threads on this one?
We're waiting for some music.
Slow down, slow down, there are children praying. Slow down, take your time. Slow down, you're not going to Africa. Slow down, you'll find the rhythm and you'll find the rhyme. You long to hear the far-off drums are calling you. You long to hear that music that calls your name. You long to go where love and mercy calls you. But there's no going, you're staying home. Just the same, slow down. Enjoy the threads and textures. Make you a poem out of all these crazy days. Slow down. It's going to be all right. You can't be out there in the streets. It's just too dangerous. But you can pray and you can dream and you can shout. Slow down. The scales are not the most important thing. It's how I am that you really need to know. Slow Slow down, slow down. I know you don't like technology, but this is the only way to know the things, the wonders we're coming to know. Slow down, slow down. It's going to be all right. Slow down and give yourself the time to experience this together and not be separated. Slow down, slow down. Let's make some music and some rhyme. Lead us not into temptation.
Wow, that was great.
Okay. Yeah, I love doing those improvs, as you probably can guess. Okay, what did you lose and what did you find? A lot of people found pounds. A lot of people lost muscle tone. But what did you lose this year? What did you find?
I found things about cats and shopping.
What?
Cats love to sit on your papers while you're trying to write on them, and also across your computer screen.
Yeah.
I think all of us have lost opportunities for physical contact, whether it's a hug at church or a mom's 90th birthday party, travel restrictions, we can't meet new grandchildren. It's been kind of difficult that way. But hey, we found Ken Medema. Princeton, 1976, Midland Park, 1985. Somewhere along the line at the worship symposium in Grand Rapids, our paths have crossed, but it's been a hoot. I found that I still have curly hair because for 6 months I didn't go to the barber because of the danger.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it's still there. I still got it. All right. We found that we had far more seekers than we realized. We have a church with a capacity of 150 if every seat is filled.
Whoa.
That worship service where I forgot the Lord's Prayer on YouTube has had 403 hits.
Come on.
Come on. It blows me away. So that was an exciting thing to discover.
Yeah.
New possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Our little church has been able to do some amazing things simply because if we all had to go to the building, a lot of us wouldn't. I mean, we're a half hour away, 35 minutes away. So we wouldn't go for as many meetings as we're having now, and we can get a whole lot accomplished on Zoom. It's just kind of amazing. What have you lost and what have you found?
I found a ritual. I love rituals. To me, I think one of the fun things in life is for you to make party out of small moments. And one of those this year that is such a pleasure to me, and I will now look back and think of it happening again and again and nourishing me every time, is that glass of wine with my daughter-in-law when she shows up during a year when I've seen no one else.
Mm-hmm.
Sonia will come in and we get out of the bottle and have that glass of wine, and it feels like magic to me.
Yeah.
It does. It does. And it's white wine too.
And I love her. I love her.
Yeah, she's pretty okay.
I love you too, Jane.
What have you lost? What have you found?
Well, for me, I have had to find what technology I needed to learn and am still learning. Because I realize that the time it takes to put together an event, even just 1 hour, is probably as much as it does to get on an airplane and go somewhere and set up and do all of that.
Yep.
But I really do miss meeting people. I miss the airports. Although I have organized things so much better, and my husband and I are really having a good time.
We have the same thing, that we have joy in just being together. What surprised me was, because believe it or not, I'm kind of an introvert. I'm a very much of a homebody. I found I love home. I do really love home. And so being here was not a difficult thing, but not being able to welcome friends and children in, those were big losses. But in the scheme of things, for those who've suffered so and are separated because someone's in the hospital or an assisted living or whatever, and not able to be together, those are big losses. We did not have that. We've enjoyed this time together as well.
You know, I listen to the news each night. I hear all the stories about so many people out of work and hungry and without homes, and I'm thinking, it's a terrible, terrible, terrible mess. And I want part of me wants to feel guilty, you know, that we are in fact well provided for, well cared for, well loved. And then I think, no, the guilt is not the best response. Action is the best response. And I keep asking myself, what is mine to do? What is ours to do in this world and in this time? And some of that we have found, and some of that we're still looking for. So, anybody else? What have you lost? What have you found?
I want to join you in that getting to be with you weekly after our long friendship. I mean, I think it's 46 years that we've known each other. I've always loved your skill and your creativity, but in terms of the texture of this year, I have gotten to see up close the joy of your practice, of your artistry, because of the technology. And so your embodiment of the joy that is yours as a channel for your craft has certainly brought joy to me, and I know to many others. So that capacity to share joy via the arts has certainly been a wonderful piece of the texture of this year for me. And I too have missed in-person hugs. And then I also have facing anew the heartbreak as a white person in this country of what it means, our racist history as a country, and our need to continue to study and learn and unpack and be active anti-racists in a range of ways, including sharing the joy of the arts.
Yep.
So it's just been a lot of texture of both loss and joy.
I am home with you more than I've ever been. I'm coming to know about you more than I've ever known. Coming to see you, coming to know you, coming to love those little rituals that bind us together week by week. And yet I miss the streets where I would love to be. I miss the places where my help could be known. I miss the city, I hear it calling me, and sometimes I feel so very much alone. I found the cat on that computer screen, not just at night, but all the whole day long. I found these tiny things, these tiny threads, these bits of joy. I found enough to make for a song. I found seekers looking for meaning, more than we ever could have found a year and a half ago. I found searching, and I found wonder, and I'm beginning to know things that I never could know before. I am home, well cared for and well fed. And what does that mean for me to do? Spirit, help me find what kind of work is mine in this time so strange and new. Spirit, help me find what kind of work is mine in this time so strange and new.
Beautiful.
We have a few viewers who have written us about stuff that they're going through. Our friend Tim Goff, who's a musician, church musician, who's been on week after week after week, is dealing with cancer. And his wife, Deb, asked us to remember him. Our friend, Susan, our special San Antonio friend, who has been a huge blessing and a gift to us in many ways, has moved into a senior residence facility, and she is fortunate enough to have a 2-bedroom apartment. And she said, I even got to bring my piano with me. So there you go. If you have the piano, you can just about take anything else. And let's see, Beverly, who else did we have?
Amy Grimes has asked for prayer.
Yeah, Amy Grimes, our friend in Florida, who's week after week after week, she's been here, part of our little odd congregation, has asked that people remember her. And I think you and Sonia have got some stuff that came in. This is really cool stuff. This came from
a person named Randy Kellogg, and I have looked through all of the postings, and I cannot find his name to tell him that we are doing this, but I had made a note of it early. And so we're just going to let you know some things that he's found out about himself. Number 1, after loving my parents, my siblings, my spouse, and my children and my friends, I have now started loving myself. I have realized that I am not Atlas. The world does not rest on my shoulders.
I have stopped bargaining with vegetable and fruit vendors. A few more pennies more is not going to break me, but it might help the poor fellow save for his daughter's school fees. I leave my waitress a big tip. The extra money might bring a smile to her face. She is toiling much harder for a living than I am.
I stopped telling the elderly that they've already narrated that story many times. The story makes them walk down memory lane and relive their past. I have also learned not to correct people even when I know they are wrong. The onus of making everyone perfect is not on me. Peace is more precious than perfection.
Amen. Yeah.
I give compliments freely and generously. Compliments are a good mood enhancer, not only for the recipient, but also for me. And a small tip for the recipient of a compliment: never, never turn it down. Just say, thank you. I remain cool when someone plays dirty to outrun me in the rat race. I am not a rat, and neither am I in any race.
I am learning not to be embarrassed by my emotions. It's my emotions that make me human. And I have learned that it's better to drop the ego than to break a relationship. My ego will keep me aloof, whereas with relationships, I will never be alone.
I have learned to live each day as if it's the last. After all, it might be the last.
Wow.
There.
Who is this inside this body? Who is this connected to this brain? Will I ever know if I keep on running? Will I ever know the pleasure and the pain? Who is this that keeps on walking down the highway? Never bothering to question where and what and how. Who is this that does not stop at the traffic light? Who keeps on rushing? You may be in for a collision now. Who is this who's got it all together? Who is this who hot rods round the corners? Who is this who all at once has a flat tire and has to stop and discover? It's back to slow down. It's back to listen. It's back to ask the questions. It's back to look out for the traffic lights. That's what they taught you when you learned to drive. How did I forget? Who is this occupying the skin? Who is this connected to this brain? Who is this? Electrons and chemicals and particles and synapses flowing, and heart and soul and mind and shadow and light and darkness and praying and spirit and longing and hunger. I think I'll take some time to learn, some time to turn, some time to let some bridges burn, to answer, who is this? So I'm kind of curious about how this year has changed us and what we want to pull into next year. I did a concert several years ago now in Denver, in Littleton, Colorado. And it was just after the high school slaying. It was so awful and so tragic, and that was the first of those that drew our mass attention. And I said in the concert, I said, okay, there are some things that you don't want to haul into next year with you. You don't want to forget them, but you don't want to be burdened down by them. But what are the hope things that you're going to bring into next year? Ask the audience to comment on those. So I'm asking you, what are the changes that have taken place that say, next year I want to...
I'll start. This year, with being online, has been burdensome and harassing. It has made me feel often stupid. It's also been wonderful. There have been those times when I was able to look at faces that otherwise I wouldn't see, when I could see multiple screens of Advent candles. But I look forward to being able to make choices about being online after this year is over. Because at this time, it's been necessary in order to see those people and be in that worship and do that Bible study and produce those concerts and speak to my relatives. It's been necessary.
Yeah.
But being online is a spiritual reality for us. It's part of our spirituality. And we need to make choices consciously about it. When to turn it off and when it serves us in our relationships, and when we need to learn new things and when we need to relax and be out of that part of culture. So that's what I look forward to. Choice.
How many times, Jane, have we said to each other, all right, we're zoomed out, not going to go to another Zoom meeting. We don't care if the church falls apart. We're not going.
That's right. Or when we started these Zoom concerts, and every week we added a new piece of equipment.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Worked the way we thought it was going to, ever.
And we're not done yet.
Not done yet.
I understand there's a mixer somewhere under that piano now.
Audio mixer. Yep. What else? What do you want to bring to next year?
I've got one for you.
Okay.
It dawns on me that we've all been through various aspects of a pandemic, which is, physical illness, but we've also been experiencing a lot of other challenges and assaults on just things going on in our society that are moments of reckoning. And so it's more than just physical healing from a disease. It's a lot of different kinds of healing that I think need to go on. And so my hope for this coming year is that we find ways to come to the table, that we find ways to ask the difficult questions, that we find new ways to listen to people with whom we may not agree, because it's fundamental for peace, and it's fundamental for understanding. It's fundamental for moving forward. So lots of different healings that need to occur, more than, that go beyond just this terrible, terrible COVID.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's all coming to light like it hasn't before. Anybody else? What do you want to bring with you?
We really hope for a cure, but we need a cure for far more than COVID. And some have already pointed out the racism and the violence that our cities have experienced, and just recently the anti-Asian violence in Georgia. During the height of COVID, I think most people in North America didn't realize it was the 75th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so there are these enormous issues for which we plead for a cure. But the place where that cure has to happen is the human heart.
Yep.
And so that we can be peacemakers instead of warmongers, and minister to each other when there are so many needs around us.
I would say amen to that, Larry. And as I look at the screen right now, Ken mentioned that the ministry we lead is called LION, that stands for Leadership in Obscurity Network. And it is a focus on leaders in obscure regions all over the world. And so one of my hopes is that the kind of example that we see right in front of us tonight, this screen, all of us in essence are leaders in obscure places around the world. And Ken, God has gifted you to bring us together in ways that many of us never imagined. The special artistry, the special way of integrating and improvising our stories. You are an inspiration to so many of us, but right now we are all equals with you. We are part of this obscure network of leaders who are somehow called by God to make a difference globally. And so my hope is that this little piece of the network that we see here can grow and expand, and that we can look at all of the positives that have come out of this and take those lessons that we've learned and commit to sharing them in Christ's name with the world, so we can be a part of building his kingdom. That's my hope.
Somebody else got a word.
I want to join Jerry, what you just said in terms of these weekly times have been not only about the arts. And so going forward, I hope that we continue to engage with the variety of ways that the arts enable our humanity, including, as Jane mentioned, rituals, old and new, that just bring our hearts and our heads to the moment. And so the ways in which the art of conversation and the art of friendship, the art of relationship has been embodied in this time. And for me, in other Zoom situations where I've grown in inner ways and outer ways, in some astonishing ways that I feel really grateful for. And I look forward to all of that continuing on as we continue on.
You guys are so spiritual. I was just thinking, I'm hoping for a restaurant hamburger that's not delivered by DoorDash.
I think that's quite spiritual.
You have led me actually right into what is our last song. And I want to say to everybody in the studio, stay on a little while after the show because we want to debrief a little bit. One last song, and then I want to say some thank yous and tell you about next week. But this is a new song that was written this past week just for today. It's gone through about 17 revisions, as they always do. But this is called Thursday's Song. We are a curious company of friends. Though most of us have not met face to face, we share these moments time and time again. I bring the songs, you bring good hearts and grace. It's almost time to start another show. A dozen glitches have our team unstrung. 10 seconds left, we're cool, it's time to go. You're live, she says, and then I start my run. One more time to share the journey. One more time to sing the songs. One more time to tell the story. One more time, I think I hear you sing along.
They're all
now it's through. It's time to put another show away. It's time to read our messages from you. We always learn from what you've got to say. To see those names we've come to know so well always makes us break out in a smile. By your presence, we easily can tell you've walked with these good folks another mile. One more time to share the journey. One more time to sing the song. One more time, oh yeah, telling the story. One more time, I think I hear you singing along. One more time to ask the questions. One more time to share the space. One more time to sit around this piano and look for treasures in this holy place. Now it's time to shut the camera down, kill the lights and put the mic away. We are bringing questions round to share with you in only 7 days.
What's that? Tell me.
So on behalf of all our little team, I'd like to sing our gratitude to you for helping to make real this little dream of folks who join to sing the journey through. One more time to share the journey. One more time to sing the songs. One more time to tell the story. One more time, I think I hear you sing along. One more time to ask the questions. One more time to share this space. One more time to sit round this piano and look for treasures in this holy place. One more time to sing the songs. So I want to say, first of all, thank you to the team that has put all this together. Sonia, our videographer. Jane, who is a thinker and idea contributor and sometimes camera setter-upper and loyal companion, and the person who has the wherewithal to ask Brian McLaren the question that put him on his toes last week. Thanks to Janelle. Thanks, first of all, to Beverly and her husband, Dave. Dave has been such a constant through all this, putting all of our constant contacts together. You get the Medema news if you get our email. You get our Medema news that tells you about the concerts. Dave has put so many hours of time into this. And thanks to Janelle, who is our ad producer and who has produced the remembrance video that you're going to see in just a minute. Janelle Joppi, who has got an eye and an ear for decorating and design like nobody. I think she probably inherited it from her mom and dad. I don't know for sure, but I think that's probably true. Have I missed anybody? Did I get the whole 10? And thanks to all the people who have watched all these weeks and who have contributed. Thanks to our sponsors. If you want to be one of our sponsors, you know what to do. Go to www.interluderetreats.org. We are more than glad for your contribution, and people have been so helpful and so generous toward us. Next week, our show is a daring one. We're going to sing and tell stories about something that is often hidden in society, and it comes out in some of the most destructive ways. I watch one after another of our religious leaders who have found themselves in horrible trouble because of an addiction that they could not control and that they tried to hide, because our society loves to hide these things, don't we? And so next week, the honest, open, and daring story of a friend who has coped with and been healed of addiction. My friend wishes to remain anonymous, so you won't see video. You'll hear only the audio of the story as my friend reads it. And the voice has been somewhat altered so that it is not recognizable. But you'll be able to understand the story. And between the parts of the story, then I will sing songs that I have written that have gone along with this story. I think it will be a gripping hour. I think for many of us who have friends or who are going through addiction ourselves and are hiding it and are not open to sort of sharing that with folks, I think it'll be a liberating moment. So join us for that. And if you come 2 weeks from now, we're going to do a Passion Week concert. You're going to get to hear that wonderful voice of Jane reading scripture. And Jane reads scripture like nobody else in the world reads scripture, because Jane has an ongoing at least 60 or 70 year love relationship to scripture. She's fallen in love with scripture time and time and time again. And you're going to hear her read the stories of Passion Week. So those are the things that are coming up. Any other word, Beverly or Sonia?
No, I just want to say that Janelle put together a video with Seasons of Love. We could not get the permission to use it. So if you do see it on Facebook, it either doesn't play or it will be snapped away. And so Ken re-recorded These Are the Days, and Janelle started a brand new video the other night. It takes hours and hours, and we're going to show it now. And when it's done, we'll say goodnight. Here we go.
This was a year for waking up and working. This was a year to risk and take a chance. This was a year for learning and for loving. To dream and dare and dance. This was a year to clap your hands, stomp your feet, beat on a drum, dance in the street, sing out a song, rhythm and rhyme. This was a year to dare to be lovers in a dangerous time. This was a year for waking up and working. This was a year to risk and take a chance. This was a year for and dance. This was a year to raise every voice, raise every hand, raise every hope, speak truth in the land, not be discouraged, to run from despair. This was a year to dare to be dreamers when dreamers are rare. This was a year for waking up and working. This was a year to risk and take a chance. This was a year for learning and for loving. This was a year to dream and dare and dance. This was a year to sing with the hungry, dance with the cold, make friends with the lonely, and laugh with the old. Welcome the stranger, cherish the friend. This was a year to pray without ceasing, for peace without end. This was a year for waking up and working. This was a year to risk and take a chance. This was a year for learning and for loving. This was a year to dream and dare and dance.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Very nice.
everyone, for
Thank you,
being here.
everyone.
I just
So-
have a parting word from our friends in Ohio, the Hammonds. We have loved every concert. We have not missed one. They have been so grounding for me and Steve
Wow.
this year, more than we could ever express.
Oh,
Well,
That
thank
is
you, everybody, and we're going to not be live any longer.
Next week.
Next week.
It was good to be with you all.
Yes,
Oh,
it was. It
worked.
was a pleasure.
It worked, people. It really worked so well.
Thank you,
Oh,
can
what,
do
a,
this.
what a delightful surprise. My
thank
word.
you, Ken. Thank you, Ken, for the honor of being in the studio with you.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
are inspiration.
Well, it really, I mean, that what I said in the song was right. It's the people who, I mean, it's the people who give us fuel for the, for this. I mean, it's the stories, it's the comments, we get fueled to do this. So.
All right, I'm ending the broadcast now.
Thank you, Beverly.
Thanks, man.
Oh, by the way, Bev, just